B'Shem HaShem Na'aseh Shiur Torah, Baruch HaShem. We're starting a new Shiur Monday nights. Zchut all goes to Warren. May he have a lot of success in spirituality, in business, and every single thing that's any good in this world. May Hashem give him and his family for putting together this shiur. It's not easy to put together a shiur. I remember when we first started with the other shiur we have on Tuesday, we started with one person. It was just me and one other person. And pretty much each week you have to almost practically beg people to come. And the reason why is because there's something called an evil inclination in Judaism. And the Yetzer Hara, the Satan, is a lot more powerful than we can even imagine. So when you say that, listen, you should go to Shiur Torah, Satan doesn't want you to. Because you're going to do everything he possibly can to convince you not to. Whether it's a flat tire, or it's a busy at work, Satan will even give you money to make sure you don't go to Shiur Torah. The last minute, right before you leave the office, the one customer you've always been waiting for a call that never called in his life, he's going to call you. And that's what happens. So, to putting together a shiur is not easy. So, Chazaku Baruch to Warren, Bezrat Hashem will continue to grow this shiur.
And then we want to do the fruit slimer for his son.
Bezrat Hashem Refuah Shlema.
Daniel Beryl.
To Daniel. Beryl?
Ben Menachem Chaya.
Ben Menachem Chaya. Bezrat Hashem will have Refuah Shlema.
Eden Malka.
And also the little baby still hasn't healed 100% yet. Eden Malka. But Avit, Bezrat Hashem will have Refuah Shlema soon. And Bezrat Hashem, all of Am Yisrael will have a Refuah Shlema and success in spirituality and connection to Hashem. So I was thinking about this lecture, trying to figure out how do you start a lecture. And it reminded me of my business days prior to learning and teaching Torah. I was in the business world. I owned, as Warren spent too much time explaining my business life was not as important. Telling you guys, I spent some time in the investment world, insurance world, and part of what I did was consulting. You know, different people would come to me with different ideas, and I would tell them my opinion, even if I wasn't the one that was actually going to take the investment per se. So it reminded me of the story of a guy by the name of Henry. I'm not going to say his last name because I don't have permission to say his story, but it was a really, really nice guy, not Jewish, but a very nice guy named Henry, who came to me and told me that there's a group of people that are offering him this investment deal in this park. And he wanted me to look at it. And I looked at the deal, and Baruch Hashem, I had a little bit of a talent as far as finding red flags, so I spotted that it was a Ponzi scheme within about 5 or 10 minutes. I spent the next few hours trying to prove it. So now, after you look at this thing and you see that all of the money that they're pitching that they're going to get for investors, they're really taking for themselves, now you have to go back to the investor and you have to tell them the truth. The problem is, how do you start a conversation with someone telling him that everything he ever believed was a lie? And it's the same thing goes with Am Yisrael today. Unfortunately, in today's world of political correctness, people are too worried about other people's feelings and not enough about the truth. So we grow up and we live a life thinking that it's okay to have our own opinion that supersedes the creator of the world. Our opinions are valid. Our logic is important. Some people are smarter than others. Some people are better in other things than others. But the key is that we have to understand that there's a creator. And the creator created instructions because no creation was ever created without a set of instructions. So for example, if I ask you, where do this pizza, does it have a creator? Did somebody make it? You would obviously say yes, because it didn't come from nothing. There wasn't an explosion that just created this pizza. Or this restaurant that we're in, you know that it didn't just come from nothing. A few people came together, put some steel together, some wood and some other parts, and the next thing you know, you have a building. The same thing goes for the roads, the same thing goes for the cars, the same thing goes for everything else in life. Every creation has a creator. The one unique part about all creation is that they all also have a set of instructions from that creator, from that manufacturer. The reason why is because if I gave you a phone for the first time, you've never seen a phone in your life, and I gave it to you, and there was no instructions, and you didn't know what this was, without the instructions, this would be useless to you. It would just be a blocker, you could just put your cup on it. But if I gave you a set of instructions and explained to you what it is, then obviously you use it. Not only would you use it, you'd know how to use it to its best potential. For some reason or another, over the last few generations, the Jewish people have been led to believe that the set of instructions we received from HaShem, we received from the creator of the world, are no longer valid. They're outdated. They don't really matter as much. They're not relevant. And the problem is that there is a systemic issue within the entire Jewish business. What do I mean? You have two sets of people. You have either people that know and they're already religious, or people that don't know and they're not religious. Now the ones that know, once they've spent some time learning, or they were born into it, they assume that everyone else knows just like they know. Someone that was born religious assumes that everyone else also knows what he knows, but they choose not to do what God asked. And that's generally the mentality of most religious people that have been born religious, that in general, people choose not to do what God said, instead of not know what God said. The other side, and the reason for that, by the way, the foundation for that claim, it's not everyone obviously, this is a general claim, is because if you look at the overall perspective of rabbis that focus on kiruv, that focus on helping people do tshuva, it's a very, very small minority in comparison to the overall number of rabbis in general that just teach Torah. Now the Torah it never ends. You can learn Torah every day, 24 hours a day for 1,000 years, and you still would not scratch the surface of how much it has. So learning Torah is obviously something that we're obligated to do as Jews, and it's something that we need to do. And religious people know this. So many of them teach themselves and each other, but that doesn't necessarily help many people get back to HaShem. That's helping people that are already in the club. Out of the 14, 15, 16 million Jews that are in the world, maybe there's less, maybe more, no one really knows how much there are. If you ask the non-Jews how many Jews there are in the world, they'll tell you 2 or 3 billion, just based on how many times we show up in the news. But if you look at the overall perspective of Jews, there's only a small minority are religious. Maybe 20% of us are keeping Shabbat. Maybe 20% of us even know what Shabbat is. Everyone knows that Shabbat is the 7th day of the week. Baruch haba. Everyone knows, even the non-Jews know what Shabbat is, as far as it being the 7th day of the week. As a matter of fact, there is no scientific reason of why there are 7 days in a week other than the Torah. Other than the Torah, there's no basis of why it was decided for it to be 7 days a week. None. No scientist will ever tell you, listen, there is a certain proofs that so-and-so scientist came up with a theory and he said this should be 7 days a week. No. There's no other religion that said it. Since before Judaism, there wasn't any other religions other than paganism, believing, worshiping idols. After Judaism, all the other religions were born. There's about 80,000 of them today. The 3 majors are Christianity and Catholicism is one, Islam and Judaism. But there are 80,000 other cults. All of them started after Judaism. So none of them could say that they knew something before Judaism. none of them can say that they are the source, because technically they're all using our book, our Torah, as their first book, and they claim to have a second book. Christianity and Catholicism claims to have the New Testament, and they call our Torah Old Testament. Kind of gives you the perspective of what I was saying before about how they're calling the Torah that Hashem gave us outdated, Old Testament. New always sounds more exciting. The Quran says that our Torah is real, but yet the entire Quran contradicts it. So I'm not really sure how it's real, but at the same time it works. But either way, no one can say that there is a basis for why there are 7 days in 1 week other than the source being the Torah. This by itself, if you think about it enough time, you'd understand that there is, obviously the Torah was not written by a man. Torah was not written by some person that decided to publish a book. Because if a person decided to publish a book and say, listen, there should be 7 days a week, and that would mean that it's open for the public to do. Then a second publisher would say, no, I think it should be 12 days a week. Another guy would come out and say, no, I want to be competitive. I'm going to make the week much easier, only 2 days a week. And then the guy that likes sales will say, you know what, it should only be 1 day a week. Every day is a new week. But since no one did it, obviously we know that this is not a creation of mankind. Bezrat Hashem, the other proofs will be much stronger, but the point is that this is a very logical proof. Now, the other side of the equation are the people that are not religious. By not religious, I don't necessarily mean people that are completely far away from what Hashem said and don't know anything. They're obviously included. But I also mean people that are 50-50. They do things based on their own understanding. And by own understanding, I mean based on their own convenience. For some reason or another, we were led to believe by the political correctness of the world and by the concerned leaders that say we don't want to turn anyone off. We're very worried about turning people off by telling them the truth. If we tell people the truth, maybe they'll be so scared they're never going to come back. So what you see is most lectures, I don't know how many of you guys watch lectures, but if you watch lectures, there are many brilliant rabbis in the world. There's no shortage of brilliant rabbis. But the overall majority of them stay away from some of the difficult parts of the Torah. For example, the whole aspect of punishment. Some groups within Judaism don't believe in punishment. They believe in what it says in our Shiur when we pray on Shabbat, that every Jew has a Olam Haba. Every Jew is going to go to the next world. The problem with that verse is that it's only the first part of that Mishnah. The second part of that Mishnah is that after it says, Kol Yehudi yesh lo chelek l'olam haba, after that, after it says every Jew has a part of the next world, it says, and these are the following that do not have a share in the world to come. In a long list of violations of who loses their share to the world to come. But in our Siddur, we don't have that. Why? Because if we read it every week, we'd probably be very depressed. In our generation especially. So many rabbis try not to talk about punishment. There's an old sage saying, Darkei Torah, Darkei Noam. Meaning teach Torah, teach the beauty of the Torah, and that's going to attract people. Yes, it does attract people. But unfortunately, not enough know that it's attractive in the first place to even hear it and be attracted to it. Even more so, since each generation, since the creation of the world continues to deteriorate, every generation, as all Jews know, we are at a generation that we don't have that kind of time. If the sages are right and we are in the end of days, then we don't have that kind of time to wait for everyone to pleasantly walk into Judaism and just decide to keep all of the mitzvot. If the Mashiach is really going to come any day, then we'll run out of time. Because once the Mashiach comes, there's no more time to do tshuva. You can't say, oh, you know what, from now on, Mashiach, now that I know you're here, I'm going to keep Shabbat, I'm going to keep kosher, I'm going to do tefillin, I'm going to watch, make sure there's family purity, I'm going to be modest, I'm going to do all the things that God said. No, once the Mashiach comes, there's no more time. Because then it's no more test. So the whole aspect of the Torah, the Kenoah, meaning teach people the pleasantness of the Torah without punishment, without any consequences. And eventually, if you teach them things in a nice way, eventually they're going to listen, and eventually they're going to do it on their own. In the past, again, this is my opinion, and I'm not the only one, but this is one of the few things that's 100% my opinion. In my opinion, we don't have that kind of time. When you have 80% of the Jewish people have no concept of the significance of Shabbat and not observing it, while at the same time all of the sages throughout all of the time and all of the prophets have said that this right now, the days we're living in right now, are the end of days, meaning the Mashiach can come tomorrow, Be'ezrat Hashem. I hope he doesn't come tomorrow because I want to save more Jews. But at the same token, it's one of our obligations to hope that he comes. So it's a little bit of a mixed opinion. So when you have 80% of the Jewish people don't even know what Shabbat is, and they're still driving on Shabbat, and they're still smoking cigarettes, and they're still violating, and some people even drive to shul. So far are they off of the basis of what God said, that they figure that if I do a mitzvah by going to the synagogue, if I do a mitzvah by going to the synagogue, then that cancels out the violation of driving on Shabbat. Makes sense. Logically, it makes sense. The problem is that the Torah is not necessarily logical. The Torah is not necessarily meant for it to be logical for us. Because our logic is obviously lesser than our Creator. You know the significance of the Creator based on His creation. So now when you have so many Jewish people that don't have a concept of what the basic foundation of what makes someone Jewish, then I don't think we have enough time to wait and for me to teach pretty things, nice things, and never tell you guys about anything that's a little bit hard. A little hard to hear. Now we're not going to learn about Gehinom on our first session, but we will learn certain things, and Shimon is laughing because he's heard some of those shiurim. But we will hear a few things that may not necessarily be pleasing to some people because, again, it's not going to be hard stuff where you're not going to be able to sleep or anything like that. The point of what I mean by saying hard is that everything I'm going to say, Be'ezrat Hashem, the goal is for it to obligate you. Obligate you to change. Obligate me to change. The goal of Rosh Hashanah, that's coming up Be'ezrat Hashem soon, is not for us to go and pray. It's not just for us to go and look at nice clothes and go to Beit Knesset and think about, oh, at least this holiday I don't have to fast like the one that's coming up 10 days later, Yom Kippur, and maybe have a nice meal at home. And then Yom Kippur, he says, oh, you know what? This is not like Rosh Hashanah. I can't eat on this holiday. And he asked the rabbi, what time is the fast end? Instead of, do you think I'm going to survive? Yom Kippur and Rosh Hashanah, it's not for us to just go and socialize with our friends and family in the synagogue. Rosh Hashanah, for all Jews that learn a little bit of Torah, they know that Rosh Hashanah is the Yom Adin. It's Judgment Day. That means that the books in Shamayim are opened and Hashem decides whether you're going to live another year or not. Now, if someone went to a trial in this world and the judge says, tomorrow I'm going to decide whether you're going to live or die. You're either going to live and be free and you're going to not have jail time, you're going to be in the world, and you do whatever you want, or the exact opposite. You're going to die. Are you going to have any worries about whether she has a nicer dress than you, or he has a nicer car than you, or whether you made the right recipe and whether the guests are going to like what you made for food? You're not going to think about that, right? Because why? Because tomorrow is a big day. Yom Kippur is the appeal. Hashem already assumed that some of us are not going to know and not going to do enough on Rosh Hashanah, because most people think that Rosh Hashanah is a celebration. Oh, it's Happy New Year, like the Christians and the Catholics. Happy New Year, and with all the bells and whistles and all the fireworks. No, it's not Happy New Year. Happy New Year, yeah, of course, we say Shana Tova, we say that you have bracha, and Be'ezrat Hashem, all of us will have bracha. But again, it's not the same type of Happy New Year. Hashem already knew that we're going to get, at some point or another, to a generation that's not going to know the significance of Rosh Hashanah. And we're not going to pray hard enough on Judgment Day. So what did He give us? He gave us an appeal. He gave us Yom Kippur. It's a day that it's unquestionable of why you're supposed to be there. No one fasts for their, just because they like it. No one stops their all just because it's pleasant. That's why in Hebrew, the word for fasting is not just tzom, it's also ta'anit. Ta'anit comes from the source of to suffer. So in essence, you're supposed to suffer a little bit. So now we have a dilemma. With 80% of people that don't know, most of the people that do know are not interested, or maybe aware, or perhaps even versed in getting those people back. But the religious people know that they need to. So Baruch Hashem obviously is smarter than all of us. He sends people like me that don't care. I don't care about people's feelings. I want to save them. If they cry, but then they keep Shabbat, then I'm happy. Because they'll cry now, but Be'ezrat Hashem, they'll get to Olam Haba, they'll be very happy. So I don't have a congregation. I don't need any tzedakah. I don't have any other benefit other than to make people religious. And that's the goal today. So now, how do you make someone religious when they're 50-50 or nothing? First, we have to decide if we should. Why should I become religious? Maybe the book is fake. Maybe it's fake. Maybe Moses wrote it. Maybe Tzvika wrote it. Maybe Abraham wrote it. Maybe Nissan in the back wrote it. Nissan comes to all my shiur. He's the one I said we started the shiur with in my house. He was the first one. It was me and Nissan.
I have the two. I ordered them. 2 more. You want 4?
No, 2 more.
Yeah, they're in the oven.
So now, what the dilemma is that most people don't know for sure if the Torah is real. To be honest with you, I actually think some religious people don't know if the Torah is real. They do it because it's become a culture. If you're born into it, it's just like if I was born in the middle of Africa and everyone's walking around with underwear. To me, that would be normal. Because I'm walking around with underwear, they're walking around with underwear. But if I came to New York, well, maybe not New York, but if I came to Florida and I walked around with underwear, then I would probably get arrested. Right? Because it's not normal here. So people think that the Torah has some things in it that are interesting. Some people even call it the best story ever told. But they have a hard time believing that it's real. This is why I call myself the failed experiment. One of the biggest drives that I have as far as doing this is because I was the failed experiment of Darkei Torah, Darkei Noah in this generation. I was the failed experiment of teaching in a nice way and eventually he'll become religious. When I had the business in New York, I had different religious people come to my office at least twice a week. Different organizations, we're not going to mention names. They all tried their best. They all did what they were told.
You weren't religious at the time?
I was not religious at that time. As a matter of fact, I was as far from religion as you could possibly be. I knew the concept of Judaism, but like many people in the world today, I defined it myself.
What is the concept? Do you have any background? Do you have any base?
Background of what?
Like everybody else. I mean, עשיתם בבית קידוש, dinner, Shabbat dinner, and that's it. But he
Your
wasn't
level,
religious.
your level.
What level of religion I was? In the past or now?
Okay.
Oh, in the past. In the past, I mean, my parents would do kiddush on Fridays,
And then TV.
and then television,
Saturday, all of
and
it,
then
right?
we would go to the movies sometimes, or the clubs, or do whatever we wanted. Eventually, my mom was the first one that started keeping Shabbat many years before the rest of us did. My father later on, but the kids never did. When we were kids, we went to we were living in Israel, and we went to a religious school for the first few years of our life. But once we came to America, that was no longer possible, so we went to public school. And when you go to public school, you become friends with the public. The public in America is not Jewish. The public in America is not religious Jewish. So you become just like them. And you have theories that you create over time, and you have your mind that you create, and you make everything into a nice chulant of opinions. And you create your own religion in your mind. So I figured that once I grew up, I figured, okay, there's something called Torah. I heard a few stories at some point. They say don't work on Shabbat. Okay, so I'm not going to work on Shabbat. I'm going to go to casino. I'll go play high-stakes poker with the best players in the world. I knew a little bit of math. I was pretty good at the game. So I'll go play at the World Series. I'll go play big tournaments. I'll play big gas games. I'm not working. It made perfect sense to me. Because all those rabbis that came to my office twice a week for over 10 years, which if you do the math, if it's, let's say, once a week, it's more than twice, but let's say if it's once a week, they would come and they would tell me nice stories, or they would tell me that, something that's relevant to the parasha, but never anything with substance, like, for example, by the way, if you don't keep Shabbat, you're not considered Jewish. That will hurt. That hurts. If I listened to it at that time, that would hurt. I'm not saying I would listen and actually do it, but I know that it would change something in me. Now, I'm not blaming any of those religious people that came to my office, because even if they would have told me, I'm not telling you that I would actually do it. But the one thing I do blame them for is for making the decision for me. For deciding that I'm not ready to hear it yet. For deciding that it's too much for me to bear. That if I heard it, it would just be too much for me. So they decided not to tell me, so I never knew. So for 10 years or more, I had people come to my office, and I would give them tzedakah, and I would listen to whatever they had to say, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, a half hour sometimes. They were really nice people. But never once did I hear from one person that Shabbat is the only thing that separates me from being Jewish. Meaning that if I don't keep Shabbat, based on the definition that's in the Shulchan Aruch, which is the book of laws, in the Torah, in 7 places, based on the oral Torah, which is in the Gemara, based on the other parts of the oral Torah, which is in the Zohar, and the best part is based on the Torah, the actual Chumash, the Tanakh, the one that everyone believes in, including the non-Jews, including the Christians and the Catholics. They also believe in the Old Testament, or the Torah, what we call the Torah, even including there. Based on all of those definitions, so you can't say it's here, but it's not there. Based on all of them, someone that's Jewish, that doesn't keep Shabbat, the least of their problems is that they're no longer considered Jewish. Now, of course, they can do tshuva, and everything that I'm going to say today and any other shiur is always subject to tshuva. But if anyone needs a source, you go to Parashat Ki Tisa, when it talks about someone that's a mechalel Shabbat. HaShem is talking about someone that violates Shabbat. And he says what's going to happen to them in one verse, one sentence. It says, Mot yumat v'nichreta nefesh me'amea. Mot means death. Yumat means upon death. So death upon death. So I died twice. We'll explain it in a second. And v'nichreta nefesh me'amea means and cut off from the nation. Now if cut off from the nation meant death, then obviously I shouldn't have died twice before. So the first death is death in this world. It's a spiritual disconnection from HaShem. Because we're not getting death penalties like they did back in Mount Sinai. So you see plenty of people violate Shabbat and they're still alive, so obviously the explanation is pretty logical. Upon death means that there's no next world, there's no olam haba. Cut off from the nation means that they're no longer connected to the Jewish people. So if anyone would have ever told me this, I'm not saying I would have kept Shabbat. What I am saying is that at least I would have known, and I would have made an educated guess. I would have made an educated decision about what I want to do with the rest of my life. Maybe I shouldn't go to the casino. Maybe I shouldn't drive around. Maybe I shouldn't do all of the things that I was doing. Maybe not working is not enough. And that's one of the examples, the small examples of what I tell you as far as things that are a little hard to hear for anyone that's not keeping it. Because again, I asked one time, there was a guy that came to one of the minhagim we have during one of the holidays is to learn Torah all night. So there was a guy that was secular, came to learn, but he never comes to shul, he doesn't keep anything, but he likes, this is one of his things that he does. He comes every year to learn. And we were talking about Shabbat, and I told him this verse. He said, no, what are you talking about? I'm Jewish. I said, no, what makes you Jewish? He goes, my passport says I'm Jewish. What do you think the next question was? Can you take your passport to heaven? Can't take your passport to heaven. Can't take your money to heaven. Can't take your car to heaven. Can't take your friends to heaven. Can't take anything to heaven. The only thing you can take to heaven is whether you have sins or mitzvot. It's the only thing you can take. And that's one of the things we need to know. So now, we have to decide that before we become obligated of what the rest of the Torah is telling us, because it says a lot, it's a lot of pages. It takes a whole year to read the Torah. If you read one chapter per week, it takes a whole year to finish it. In the old days, it took 3 years. They studied it more in depth than we do today. But nonetheless, it takes a year to read it. If you read it with the congregation, if you read it by yourself, it shouldn't take more than a few weeks. But either way, before we become obligated and read all of these other rules, we have to find a few things to hold on to. A few things to hold on to that are stamps of approval, logically, spiritually, and something that's very popular today, scientifically. How can we prove something that was written 3,300 years ago scientifically? Because it's too common of a saying that people say that the Torah is no longer relevant. It's not relevant to our generation. Back then they didn't have cars, so that's why they didn't violate Shabbat. Or back then they didn't have casinos like we have today, and that's why they didn't gamble. Despite the fact that all of that is convenient nonsense, we can still prove the Torah, and we're going to start with the first book, Bereshit. We're not going to cover the entire Parashat Bereshit because I want to cover it in depth. Every shiur we're going to cover another part. Today, Be'ezrat Hashem, we'll cover the first 7 days. That's it. Cover the first 7 days and see some things that, some things are going to be scientific, so they're going to be a little heavy as far as science. If you have questions, please stop me at any given time. This is not a pure lecture where I talk. If you have questions in the middle, just like Moshe did, you could ask me and I'll explain as best as I can. The goal is for you to understand. I already learned it, so the goal is for you to learn it, and then through you learning it, I end up learning because I'm repeating it, and we both benefit. So, first verse in the Torah is Bereshit bara Elohim et hashamayim ve'et haaretz. In the beginning of God's creating the heaven and the earth, והארץ הייתה תוהו ובוהו, וחושך על פני תהום, ורוח אלוהים מרחפת על פני המים, ויאמר אלוהים יהי אור ויהי אור, וירא אלוהים את האור, כי טוב ויבדל אלוהים בין האור ובין החושך, ויקרא אלוהים לאור יום, ולחושך קרא לילה, ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום אחד. In the beginning of God's creating the heavens of the earth, when the earth was astonishingly empty, with darkness upon the surface of the deep, and a divine presence hovered upon the surface of the waters. God said, let there be light, and there was light. God saw that the light was good, and God separated between the light and the darkness. God called to the light day, and to the darkness he called night. And there was evening, and there was morning, one day. Alright, So now, one thing that we learn is that before this world, there was nothing. There's nothing. It was a mess. One thing that those that learn a little bit of Torah is a very famous verse, which I'll read it in Hebrew first, and then, to give it the proper respect, and then we'll talk about it in English, which is, Im lo beriti yomam v'layla, chukot shamayim v'aretz lo samti. Were it not for my covenant, which he's referring to the study of Torah, were it not for my covenant day and night, I would not have appointed the ordinance of heaven and the earth. This is in Jeremiah 33:25. So he's saying, Hashem created the world from nothing. That's one of the core foundations of Judaism. But at the same token, he's telling us that if there wasn't the learning of Torah every single second of the day, someone in the world has to learn Torah. Baruch Hashem, there's many people that learn Torah in the world. But if we were the only ones learning Torah in the world right now, we would be holding up the world. So he's saying if no one learns Torah for even 1 second, he would destroy the world. Now when people think about destroying the world, they think about Noah. They think, there was a flood, and 40 days, then after that, there was some rain, and after that there was a lot more, and then pretty much destroyed the whole world. The whole process took about a year worth of disasters. So people think, it's going to take God a year to destroy the world. This is a convenient belief that people have because they figure that if it's going to take him that long, maybe it's going to give me enough time to plead with them and convince them that, hey, don't do it. I'm a nice guy. It reminds me of a joke. There was two guys, neighbors, that lived next to each other all their life. One guy was religious, Jewish, going to learn Torah each day while he works as well. The other guy, no Torah, no mitzvot, no nothing. He worked in a taxi cab. So once in a while, the religious guy would say to the non-religious guy, he's like, listen, you know what? Maybe you should come to the Knesset, learn a few things, learn some Torah. It's really important. No, don't worry about it. I'm fine. He goes, well, how are you fine? He goes, no. When I got up there, I'll figure it out. I'll work something out over there. I'll work something out. What do you work out? It's God. He goes, yeah, I work out things with my customers all the time. It's only $10. I convinced him to give me $15. God gave me this talent, so obviously he gave me this talent to convince him too. This made sense to him. And that's how he lived his life. One day, both of them went up to Shammai, and they're both in the court, and the religious guy sees the judges first, and the non-religious guy is looking from the back. He's like, oh, this is real. I didn't really think it was really going to happen this way, but okay. So he's watching his friend, his so-called friend, and he sees, they asked the friend, so what did you do each day? He goes, I learned Torah. He goes, no, what did you do in the beginning? He goes, first thing I did a few blessings when I got up in the morning. Put that on the scale. Well, after that, he goes, after that I drank a quick cup of coffee before I went to the Knesset. Wait, hold on, before you got to the Knesset. Coffee? What kind of coffee? Black coffee, no milk. Okay. Put all that coffee that he ever had. Do you have any sugar in it? Yeah, I had sugar. Okay, that goes on the scale also. So the guy on the outside is like, I knew it was going to be made. He drank only 1 cup. I drank 3 cups of coffee before I even left the house. So then the guy says, okay, I went to the Knesset after that. Did you walk? Did you drive? He goes, no, I walked. Okay, each step, let's measure it. It was 1 mile walk. Put all that measuring tape times 70 years. Goes on the scale. Once I prayed. After that, I ate breakfast. What'd you eat? Usually I would eat a little muffin. And then start studying. He goes, no, hold on a second. Muffin you ate? Muffin is there on the average. So okay, put that on the scale. The guy on the outside is celebrating like you wouldn't believe. It's like, muffin? I told this guy he didn't know what he was doing. Muffin? I didn't even leave the house before I had 2 or 3 of them. And just when I got into the car, the first thing I went to was Dunkin' Donuts. Just to make sure that I had the freshest donut of the day. So then after that, he said, after I learned Torah, which obviously all goes on the scale also, so the non-religious guy on the outside, he's like, all right, Torah I don't really have that much. But the muffins I'm very good at. So after they said I had lunch, what did you have for lunch? Oh, I usually have a piece of chicken. Small piece of chicken. Oh, that all goes on the scale. The guy on the outside, the cab driver, is celebrating. Chicken, poor guy, I would have at least one chicken, at least one steak, and sometimes some cheese on it too. He's celebrating and as happy as can be. Because he sees his friend's scale keeps going higher and higher with mitzvot. And he's like, oh, you only had one piece of chicken and one coffee and one donut. Eventually they say, okay, you have Gan Eden, they let him in, and the cab driver comes in. So they say, hello? He's like, hello? He goes, listen, I'm not going to waste your time. Just take a pen, write this down. In the morning I'd have 3 cups of coffee. I put 4 sugars. My friend only 1 sugar, I don't know why. I don't know why he's worried. We both died at the same time. So 4 sugars, that worked for me. I didn't have, like my poor friend, Misken. He only had one muffin. I had 3 before I left the house. After that, I went to Dunkin' Donuts. After that, I had 3. He goes, wait, hold on a second. The judge is like, wait, what do you think this is, a restaurant? He goes, what do you mean? My friend, he just came here. He just told you his order. He told you what he ate. He goes, no, you don't understand. Him, everything he did a blessing before he ate. And everything he did was so he has the energy to do even more blessings, to do more learning Torah, to do more praying to HaShem. What about you? Did you pray to HaShem? He goes, no, not so much. Did you learn Torah? No, not so much. What did you do? I worked in my cab. Okay, it's not bad to work. What'd you do with the money? He goes, I went to Bahamas. Did you give any tzedakah? No, not so much. He goes, oh, so all the chicken and all the donuts and all the coffees are worthless. They don't go on your scale. And that's what we have to understand, is that our logic, as much as it makes sense to us, doesn't necessarily make sense in Shamayim. So now, when we have a world that Hashem is telling us, on one end I build it from nothing, on another end if there's no Torah it goes back to nothing. Our logic will tell us that will take him time. I'm here to tell you it will take him no time. It will be instant. It doesn't require war, doesn't require earthquakes, doesn't require winds, doesn't require anything. It requires him to stop thinking about us for a millisecond and everything stops. How do we know this scientifically? Scientifically, we know there's something called an atom. All of life, whether it's the trees, or it's you, it's your hat, it's your kippah, it's my jacket, it's the iPad, it's the book, the cars, everything gets down to being made up out of atoms, energy. Now, an atom has the nucleus inside, which is the proton inside, and it has this, that stays, doesn't move, stays the same, and then there's an electron, which is an energy, that spins around it really, really fast. So fast that it makes everything else look like it's solid. As an example, you should consider thinking about a fan. If you've ever seen a fan, when a fan is spinning really fast, it looks like there's only one blade. But as soon as the fan slows down or it stops, you see that there are 4 blades or 3 blades. So it's an illusion. It's an illusion there's only one blade. The world we live in is also an illusion. It's an illusion that we actually have something. But in reality, 99.9% of the atom is empty space. It's nothing. The nucleus is drastically bigger than the electron that's spinning around it. But the distance between them, to put it in an easy way, is the equivalent of us to the sun, between each atom. And there are trillions upon trillions about trillions of atoms in each and every single cell in your body, or everything that's made up over here. But all of that, in reality, is an illusion. It's all empty space. Scientists have even gone one step further, where they went inside the atom that's mostly made of nothing, And they went inside the part that's not nothing. And they saw that most of that is also nothing. It's also 99.99% nothing. Zero. Now if you take all of the matter, all of the something that we have, in all of the universe, everywhere, and let's say you stop spinning, the illusion stops. It stops spinning. We no longer see one blade. We see everything. We see everything for what it is. Everything in the whole universe would be clear to us. The nothing will be exposed. And the something will also be exposed. The something of all the universe together will fit into a box of matches. Which means that if HaShem wanted to destroy the world, chas v'chalila, he would just stop thinking about us for a millisecond, and the atom would stop spinning. This is also one of the best arguments for people that don't believe in God. People that claim that things came from some explosion. The easiest way to defeat that argument, which we'll learn some other ones today, is that, let's say it came from nothing. Let's say there was an explosion. Let's say nobody, Moses wrote this book. Let's say all the rest of what nonsense they say is real. Fine. You still have to believe in a source. You still have to believe in God. Even the biggest scientists in history eventually get to a point where they believe in God, including Darwin, which is the one that made everyone else believe in the survival of the fittest. Everyone forgot to read the rest of his life, which is that he said, I've concluded that there has to be a source, there has to be a God. They forgot that chapter. They just believed that the first part that they read. So now, if they listen to this, and they say, wait a minute, everything came from an explosion, fine. Started 13.7 billion years ago, Big Bang Theory, fine. Everything started from a cell, fine. I agree with you, you're the best, genius. Where did the cell come from? It can't come from nothing. Nothing. There had to be even the argument of the Big Bang says that something existed. Where did that something come from? And the second question is, that something was also made out of atoms, which is mostly made out of nothing. So, what kept it spinning at the most critical time of its existence, before it exploded? What's keeping it spinning now? So this is, again, doesn't take a scientist's brain to understand, but simply said, it destroys all arguments for anyone that's objective. The next thing we learn is, how do we know from the first paragraph of the Torah, first 5 verses of the Torah, how do we know that Hashem meant for us to have the Torah as the purpose of life? How do we know? How do we know it's not to make money? How do we know it's not to go party? How do we know it's not to go to Bahamas, like the cab driver? How do we know it's not to, go on TV and make shows? This Torah has the literal meaning, but it also has secrets within it. I'm not going to go deep into it, we're just going to give you a little taste of what it means. There's something called codes, Torah codes. Torah codes are a mathematical way of finding hidden messages within the Torah. By finding a word after counting letters, and having the word is made up of not of the actual words that are in the Torah, but actually by separating each of one of the letters by equal distance of letters. So, for example, if you wanted to find my name, Yaron, okay? So you would look for Yud, and then you would look for a certain number, let's say 7 or 50 or any number, and then you would get to Resh. And then, in order for that formula to work and be valid, it can't be just any other number after it. It has to be, again, if you picked 7 the first time, it has to be 7 the second time. It can't just be random numbers. So if you see that you see Y, A, or Yud, Resh, Vav, and Nun, which is my name in Hebrew. If you see that you found that name with a equal distance of letters, then it has some type of pattern. There's something behind it. It's not just something random. But if the first time it's 7, the second time it's 63, the third time it's 104, then there's obviously no rhythm, then it's just pure nonsense. Okay? Now, if that word that you're looking for has a foundation itself, meaning that the word that you're looking for is related to the verse that you're finding it in, the paragraph that you're finding it in. So for example, if you happen to find the word in Bereshit, the first paragraph, if I were to tell you that the purpose of life is Torah, and it was told to us in the first few verses. Now if you remember, I just read you what I read you. I didn't say the word Torah once. So how could I prove it? I say that in here, there is the word Torah, and not only is the word Torah with an equal distance of letters, but even beyond that, the number of skip is relevant to when we got the Torah. When did we get the Torah? During the holiday of Shavuot. During the holiday of Shavuot is when we got the Torah. Right? When is Shavuot according to the Torah? It's 7 weeks after Pesach. So it's on the 50th day. 7 weeks is 49 days. So it's on the 50th day. So if you look at Bereshit, it's the beginning. Bereshit has the word Taf, the letter Taf. The first Taf, which is the equivalent of T in English. The first Taf in all of the Torah is in the first word. The first Taf, you skip 50 letters, you get Vav in the word Tehom. You skip 50 letters, you get Resh in the word Vayal. You skip 50 letters, and you get Hey in the word Elohim, God. Showing you that not only is the Torah right in the beginning without even saying the Torah in a literal way, but it's at a time where it's appropriate for that word to be in there. There are there's hundreds of thousands of codes within the Torah, but again, this is just one way to prove that the Torah is not something that a man could have ever written. Another thing that I actually learned recently by a video that was put on by Oren Evon, was work also done by Professor Chaim Shiur, about the first verse of the Torah, is that the Ramban says that that bereshit also means bechokhmah, with wisdom. Bereshit means in the beginning. But if you look at each word in the Hebrew language has a source, has a foundation. Words don't just appear from nothing, like for example in other languages where we just make up words. Each word has a root word within it. So bereshit has the word rosh, which means head in Hebrew. Rosh indicates wisdom. So the Ramban says that bereshit also means bechokhmah, with wisdom, meaning that with wisdom God created the heaven and the earth. Okay, nice. If you look at the numerical value of the letters, each letter in the Hebrew alphabet has a numerical value. If you look at the numerical value of the letter of the word chokhmah, including the letters that spell each one of the letters, meaning chet, it's chokhmah is chet, chaf, mem, hey, but each the letter chet, if you spell the word chet out, is chet yud tet. Kaf is kaf pei, and mem is mem mem, and hey is hey yud. So, how do we know who is considered wise, who's considered chacham in the Torah? We say if he follows what God says. How does he follow what God says? He follows 613 mitzvot. Chokhmah, this numerical value of all of those letters I just mentioned to you, of Chokhmah is 613. So again, another small example of Professor Chaim Shor's work and others showing that how the Torah is far, far beyond human imagination. The next thing is Mazal Tov. The next thing is we read Vayomer Elohim Yehi rakia betoch hamayim v'hi mavdil ben mayim lemayim. God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of waters, and let it separate between water and water. ויעש אלוהים את הרקיע ויבדל בין המים אשר מתחת לרקיע ובין המים אשר מעל הרקיע. ויהי כן. ויקרא אלוהים לרקיע שמיים, ויהי ערב ויהי בוקר יום שני. We're in the second day. We finished day 1. I wish, but we finished a speck of some things we can learn about day 1. Day 2. God said, let there be a firmament in the midst of the waters, and let it separate between water and water. So God made the firmament and separated between the waters, which were beneath the firmament, the waters which were above the firmament. We're talking about the sky. And it was so. God called to the firmament heaven, and there was evening and there was morning, a second day. Great. Chazal, which is our sages, say that there are 2 waters being mentioned in this verse. He says that there are waters above the sky and there are water below the sky. And if I asked you, where is the water below the sky? Everyone knows the answer, right? It's in the ocean, it's in the lakes, it's in my toilet, it's in your toilet, sometimes in this Coca-Cola, hopefully. It's everywhere, right? But where's the other water? Where's the water above the sky? And not only that, as if that argument wasn't hard enough to prove 3,000 years ago, they said not only is there water above the sky, the water above the sky is much more significant to our needs, and not only much more significant, there's much more of it. The last time I checked, when I looked at the sky, there's no water. Yes, of course, sometimes there's clouds, and they pour rain, but that comes from here, so I can't really count that. He says he's separating the water from below the sky, the clouds are below the sky. So he's not referring to the clouds. He's saying it's above the sky, it's somewhere else, it's in outer space. It's a problem, boys. Other planets, you looked at the moon, there's no water there. Look at other planets, we're not really sure what they have, what they don't have. It's a little more indications in the last few years. But what did they do 3,000 years ago? What did they do in Gemara 2,000 years ago? Well, I can tell you, back then they didn't have telescopes. So everyone made fun of us. Everyone said, you don't know what you're talking about. See, I told you making this up. It's nonsense that you're saying. There's more water above than the ocean. Look how big the ocean is. The ocean is 73% of the globe. 73%. You're telling me there's more water somewhere else and we can't see it? If it was so much water, we could definitely see it. Once in a while, we all see something called a shooting star. Right? You ever see a shooting star? In New York, you don't see too many shooting stars because of the pollution. But in Florida, I think there's less pollution.
Where you live.
Huh?
That's where you live.
Well, I lived on the 35th floor in Manhattan. In downtown Manhattan, no shooting stars.
Upstate, you saw that.
Upstate. That's not really considered New York. So now, you have shooting stars. And we always thought, this is nice. Some people thought, it's a star that was broken. It fell. It's a nice story. Sometimes they tell kids maybe. In reality, what is that star? Scientists discovered that star is creating this stream because that stream is water vapor. Where is that water vapor coming from? From the star. What's the star really? It's a comet. What's the comet? It's a ball of ice. Tall ice. We had a few of them hit Earth. There's one that hit Earth in 1908. The field that it hit, it said it was the equivalent of several atomic bombs that hit Hiroshima in World War II. was the equivalent of a few of them. And the trees, thank God there wasn't people there, but the trees until this day can't grow on that field. That's how powerful it was. This was just one comet, tiny, tiny little comet, 30,000 pounds. The average comet that you see in the sky with the little streak is 1 billion tons. 1 billion. Some of them get even to a million billions. Okay, so that's a lot. One other thing that Chazal told us is that not only is the water above the water here much more significant in size and importance, but also it's still. It's in one place, it doesn't move. Baruch HaShem, we got to a point in science that we finally got to a point where we can see some of the deeper parts of outer space, and we saw that the outer layer of outer space is all one big ball full of ice, and those comets are tiny little pieces that keep breaking off of it, meaning that if that giant layer, that giant outer layer, which is called the Oort cloud, if it were ever to melt, it would fill the oceans of the earth more than 1,000 planets the size of the earth. This is page 32. You have this book? Whoever doesn't have this book, whoever waits till the end, I give out this book for free, along with some CDs that talk about Torah. So whoever wants to wait till the end, I have a free copy for them. It's a fantastic book by Rabbi Zamir Cohen, and there's many of the proofs that I'm going to talk about come from this book. So this is something that talks about comets. It's extraordinary, and it's something that really, truly shows how, at a time we didn't have telescopes, at a time we didn't have anything even remotely close to the technology we have today, we knew much more than the people even today know. Why? Because we got the information from the creator of the world. The second thing is we learn is that there is something more to water. If HaShem said that he had to create something that's related and connected to water, then obviously water is important. Water is important for our existence. Now scientists say that most of the human is made up out of water. Great. But there was a professor, a Japanese professor, I believe his name was Professor Yamato, he's also in this book, but I'll just go off of, I think his name was Professor Yamato. No, Imoto. Okay, sorry, Mr. Imoto. Professor Imoto, not Jewish, last I checked, wanted to understand water in a deeper level. He wanted to understand if we can impact water with purely our words. So he took water, took them into a little petri dish, those little dishes that you have in science lab. He put water in it. He took 2 dishes. One water, before he froze it, he gave it compliments, said nice things about it. And the other one he cursed at, said not so nice things. Like you go to New York and you hear that language, like everyday language.
And the subway.
Subway, ooh. Subway, that water won't survive. So now, I have to pick another place. I don't want to pick on New York too much. I'm going there in a few weeks. So now, he took these 2 dishes, he said some nice things and some bad things, and then he froze it. After he froze it, he took it out, looked at it in a microscope to see how the ice cells were formed. If any one of you have ever seen a snowflake, when it's under a microscope, it's beautiful. It has a beautiful symmetrical design, and no 2 snowflakes are the same. It's also one of the amazing proofs that a creator had to create the world, because no 2 snowflakes are the same. Just like no 2 raindrops ever touch. When rain, one of the miracles of rain is that when rain falls, no 2 raindrops ever touch each other. Why? Why is that important for us? Because if the raindrops would touch each other, then the drops would get bigger and bigger. And instead of it being rain that doesn't hurt us, it could be a flood on our head and killing people. So no 2 raindrops ever touch each other. Despite what the winds are, as much wind as you can have, whether it's Hurricane Katrina or Hurricane Sabrina, none of it ever affects the creator of the world that put a science behind everything. So now, you have this water. He's looking under the telescope, and he sees that the one that he said nice things on has a beautiful symmetrical design similar to snowflakes. Nice, beautiful stars. They have pictures in this book. Amazing. The one that he said not so nice things, dark, ugly, and deformed. So there was a student in Bar Ilan University in Israel that wanted to take it a step further. He wanted to see if our words could affect plants. So he took 3 beans and he planted all 3 of them. One of them he said nice things, one of them he said bad things, and one of them he took a shot at this Torah stuff. He said, let me read some Tehillim, let me read some Psalms. See, maybe it's a little more than nice things. So of course, the nice things, after a month, grew a little bit, the bean grew a little bit. The bad ones, bean died, didn't grow anything. The Psalms grew something beyond normal. Something like 5 times the size of the one that had good words. Showing that it's not just good words, it's something divine. Why am I telling you about water? Are you going to become a scientist at some point or another and start carrying around petri dishes next to your friend showing, look, I got nice things? No. Because if you remember in the beginning of what I said most of our body is made out of water. And if the words in our mouth affect the water outside of us, like Professor Imoto says, what is bad language doing to our inside? If you notice, language, amongst all of civilization, has changed drastically over the last 150 years. Cursing is a lot more normal today. Speaking freely about sex and intercourse and things that are not necessarily supposed to be public information is very normal. What's also very normal is for us, unfortunately, to hear of new diseases. And diseases without cures and diseases that, unfortunately, are killing thousands and thousands of people on a daily basis. If we could only listen to the Creator from the second day when He created water, He also wanted to teach us that our words are going to have an impact. This Torah that we found out in the first few verses, that has a good impact on our body. Not just on the outside, but also on the inside. But as far as bad words, it's not only affecting the outside in a bad way, where people are not going to like you so much. Maybe you'll get fired. Maybe you'll be frowned upon. I don't know. Maybe your friends like it. I'm not really sure. But your inside will definitely suffer. Not that I wish anyone suffering, but this is in the book. This is scientifically proven. So again, it's one of the amazing things that we learned from water. After this, we go to the third day, and it says, "Vayomer Elohim yikabu hamayim mitachat hashamayim el hamakom echad v'tiraya yabasha v'yi chen v'yikra Elohim layabasha eretz ulemikveh hamayim kara yamin v'yar Elohim ki tov Vayomer Elohim tadsheh haaretz deshe esef mazri'a zera etz pri oseh pri lemino asher zaro bo al haaretz v'yi chen." God said, "Let the waters beneath the heaven be gathered into one area, and let the dry land appear." And it was so. God called to the dry land earth, and to the gathering of waters He called seas. And God saw that it was good. God said, "Let the earth sprout vegetation, herbage yielding seed, fruit trees yielding fruit, each after its kind, containing its own seed on the earth." And it was so. Okay. What I'm going to focus on is etz pri oseh pri, fruit tree yielding fruit. If you don't mind, Warren, I'll pass this around. The first fruit tree, it says here in Hebrew, it's a little more understandable than English. It says etz pri oseh pri. It's in essence indicating that the first tree was also a pri. The actual tree itself was a fruit. Meaning that it's not just a fruit that you pick off the tree to eat, but at first you were able to eat the tree. The etz was a pli. V'hoya oseh pli. And it made fruit. The fruit, the tree that was a fruit, made fruit. Right? Now Chazal tells us we can learn something from everything. We can learn something to change our life from everything. The other day I learned from my carpet. I learned something very, very important from my carpet. It's actually relevant to this shiur and it's relevant to every shiur. I have a dog. It's a cute dog. He's been with me 15 years. We've gone through war together. Best dog in the world. His name is Bully. I named him Bully because he's exactly the opposite. Just looks like it, but he doesn't even bark. But Bully, like most dogs, sheds. Sheds. He's 15 years old. He still sheds to this day, a little less than he used to, but still sheds. Which means that almost every day my carpet in my living room looks like another dog. So sometimes, and also anytime he takes one of the treats, he takes the treat, and where does he want to eat? On the carpet. He doesn't want to eat on the floor. He wants to eat on the carpet. Why? Because he feels at home with all of the other dog that's there that's come from his shedding, and the treat. It's a nice big party. Be'ezrat Hashem, this shiur will also be for Refuah Shlema, for Abi ben Shalom, Shevach, Gilad ben Yosef, Tzabari, and Be'ezrat Hashem they will have a Refuah Shlema, and Yosef ben Naomi. It's always good to stop even in the middle of the shiur for Refuah Shlema, because Refuah, you want it to come as soon as possible. And Be'ezrat Hashem, Hashem will give me back my thought so I don't forget it.
So say 2 more people then.
So let's say another 2 people. Be'ezrat Hashem also, if they're Jewish and they're good people, why not? And Refuah Shlema to Oded bat Esther and Mazal bat Simcha. May they also have Refuah Shlema Be'ezrat Hashem quickly. We said Eden already before. So now, and Adozai bat Oza, Be'ezrat Hashem, she will also have Refuah Shlema and Refuah Shlema to all of Am Yisrael. So now my carpet. Oh yes. And Aliza bat Miriam, and she have a Refuah Shlema Be'ezrat Hashem. I said the Refuah Shlema. You can listen to the fruit part at least. So now, what can we learn from my carpet?
This is another dog.
You guys don't want the carpet, do you? So now every day,
We have 2 dogs we'll give you.
so now every day I see this carpet, and we have to vacuum this carpet. And it goes back, before we vacuum the carpet, it looks so bad that I want to throw it out. It's like, it's so bad, I can't fix this. I can't fix this. But then my wife says, fix it. So I fix it, I get the vacuum cleaner and I fix it. And it looks brand new. This is the same thing as a Jew. A Jew that has never done a mitzvah in his life. A Jew that has made a big mistake today. A Jew that has violated Shabbat. A Jew that made every mistake he could possibly imagine, that's giving the Yetzer Hara a lot of ammunition to convince him he should just give up. There's no way to turn back. You're like the carpet. It looks terrible. The cookie's on you, the shedding's on you, God only knows what else is on you. You can't go back to HaShem. No. That's what we have to learn. Tshuva is always available. As long as the light is still on, as long as a Jew is still here, the opportunity to do tshuva is still available. But as soon as the clock stops ticking, no more tshuva. Whether the clock stops ticking because the Mashiach is here, or because our clock stops ticking because at some point or another, Be'ezrat Hashem, after 120, our clock stops ticking. So now, we go back to the fruit. What can we possibly learn from the fruit? We learn from the carpet, so the fruit is an even more genius creation than the carpet. If you notice, what is the most beautiful part of the fruit?
Seed.
Notice from the picture I gave you a little bit of a hint. It's the middle. It's the middle of the fruit. If you cut the fruit in half, you cut the apple. We'll use an apple as an example. You see, if you cut an apple in half, you see the beauty of the creation. Why? Because from when you cut it in half, you see all of it. You see the peel on the outside that's protecting it. You see the body of the fruit. And then you see the shell that's protecting its precious jewels, which is its seed, so it can continue reproducing. It shows that this is not just from an explosion. There's obviously a system here. There's logic here. This could not have come from some explosion, because if you look at every single fruit, it's different than the other. But many of them, all of those that are on that picture, and I believe all of them, including vegetables, have one common denominator. They don't all look the same. As you can see from the pictures, they're all different. They don't all taste the same, obviously, as you all know from experience. But they all act the same as soon as you peel them. As soon as you peel an apple, and you just leave it there. You peel an apple a little bit. What happens after you peel the apple? It becomes dark. It becomes dark. Here's what we learned from the apple. HaShem gave his precious jewels like our neshama inside. He also gave him a body, like our body. But to protect the neshama in the body, he gave him the peel. He gave him the peel because the peel has to hide what's precious. This is no different than a Jewish woman or a Jewish man. What ends up happening to the apple is that as soon as you take off its clothes, what does it becomes dark. Why is it becoming dark? Because it's shy. It's embarrassed. You're seeing its inside. This is one of the lessons we need to learn for Jewish men and for Jewish women. Where unfortunately today, it's common for women to walk around half naked and for men to think nothing of it. It's normal. There was one time a party that a guy had, and he invited his rabbi, and he was telling a group of people that, hey, listen, Rabbi, we're want to say goodbye. We're going on vacation. The rabbi said, where'd you go? Where are you going? He goes, I'm going to the Bahamas. Go on the beach, hang out. He says, you're going to the beach with your wife? He goes, yeah. He goes, and your wife dresses like everyone else? He goes, yeah, she wears a bikini, no big deal. He says, can I see the bikini? Can you ask your wife to come down and show me the bikini she's going to wear for the Bahamas?
She's going to model it?
So, that was a good one. Shiur was worth it just for that. Now, the guy obviously doesn't say what he said. The guy gets offended. He goes, what do you mean? There's 300 people here in this party. How dare you? What kind of rabbi are you? Rasha? Evil. What kind of rabbi are you? Asking to see my wife in a bikini? What kind of rabbi are you? So the rabbi says,
Why would you do it?
why is it a problem to show it to me and 300 people, but not a problem to show it to 50,000 people on the beach? Your ears should listen to your foolish mouth. The apple is teaching us a lesson. We are not supposed to show our body to the world. We are not supposed to show the parts that Hashem told us to protect. This is why the apple and the orange and the strawberry, the pear and the banana and everything else, as soon as you take off the peel, they're trying to teach us a lesson. They're trying to remind us this is not normal. Normal is for me to be covered. Why? Because there's something precious that's being covered. If I had a bag of diamonds, do you think I would throw them up in the air and show the world I have them? No. I'd put them in a safe, amongst another safe, maybe another safe on top of it. cover it, it's precious. Same thing with the body, same thing with the soul. We're not supposed to necessarily show our body to the world. And this is something you can literally learn from a fruit. There's beauty there, but it's only specific to certain people. We go into the fourth day. I'll fast forward a little bit because we don't have that much time left. And if you've noticed, the first 3 days, HaShem says that there was light, but He still hasn't created the sun, He still hasn't created the moon, and He still hasn't created the stars. But yet there's light. So an easy explanation of that, what Chazal tells us, the sages tell us, is that in the beginning there was something called Or Ganuz, hidden light. A light that in essence gave the ability to see from one end of the world to the other end of the world. But God also knew that eventually He's going to create man, and man has an evil inclination, an inclination that will make him do bad things. So if a man was able to see from one end of the world to the other end of the world, he will use it for bad things, like peeping in onto women he's not allowed to see, looking into bank accounts, and doing other things that obviously you could just use your imagination for what they can do. So that light was taken away, and He then gave us the sun and the moon. Now along with the moon, in the fourth day is when they were created. It says, "Vayas Elohim et shnei hameorot hagedolim et המאור הגדול לממשלת היום ואת המאור הקטן לממשלת הלילה ואת הכוכבים." It says, God made the two great luminaries, the great luminary to dominate the day, which He's referring to the sun, and the lesser luminary to dominate the night and the stars. Okay, the part we're going to focus on is the stars. This is something I've mentioned in other shiurs, but it still fascinates me every time I say it, so I'll repeat it for my own sake. And maybe some of you guys haven't heard it. Until the 1600s, when Galileo Galilei came out with the telescope, all of mankind believed that there is only the number of stars in the sky was the number of stars that you can see with the naked eye. And some small tools they had. So they estimated that you can see somewhere in the neighborhood of 6,000, maybe 8,000 stars. And that's it. The Torah in Masechet Brachot, in the Gemara, in the oral Torah, said, no, that's wrong. We already have a tradition directly from God. And He not only told us that there's more than 6,000 or 8,000 stars, but He gave us an exact number. The exact number is 1064340, and then 12 zeros after it. How did He tell us? He told us in Masechet Brachot we were complaining to God about how He destroyed our Bet Mikdash. And after He destroyed our Bet Mikdash, we felt like He left us. So we said, listen, God, even a man that divorces a wife, still, if you ask him 20, 30 years later, do you remember the first wife you had? He's still going to say, yeah, of course I remember the first wife I had. Good or bad, he's going to remember it. But you, God, you forgot us. You abandoned us. So God says, my daughter, He calls Am Yisrael my daughter. 12 constellations did I create in the firmament, meaning in the heavens. He made 12 constellations. This is the zodiac signs. You've noticed there's zodiac signs. Was not an invention of the Greeks or the other non-Jews. It's a creation of the Torah. 12 constellations that I create in the firmament, and about each and every constellation I created 30 army commanders. And about each and every army commander I created 30 legion, 30 legions. And about each and every legion I created 30 ra'aton. And about each and every ra'aton I created 30 karaton. And about each and every karaton I created 30 gistera. And about each and every gistera I suspended in the firmament 365,000 times 10,000 myriads of stars corresponding to the days of the year. All of them I created only for your sake. And you say, you have forsaken me, and you have forgotten me. Okay, it's a little bit of code language. This is the Gemara, Masechet Brachot 32. Tzad Bet. So, this is not only Hashem telling us that we're special. This is not only Hashem telling us that we're considered like His daughter. Parent obviously loves his daughter. But He's giving us a formula. He's giving us a math equation here. It's 12 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 30 times 365,000 times 10,000. He's saying that's the number of stars in the universe. And that's the number that I mentioned to you before, which is 1064340 and then 12 zeros. Or 10 to the 18th power plus 64340 and then 12 zeros. That's the exact number of stars. I don't know how to say the number.
Big.
Big. Genius. So when we said this to the Goyim, when we said this to the Greeks, when we said this to the Romans, when we said this to the Egyptians, when we said this to the Turks, when we said this to the Syrians, to the Arabs, to everyone, what do you think they said?
You're nuts.
You're nuts. Shtuyot. In the 1600s, Galileo Galilei came out with something called a telescope. It wasn't as advanced as today, so if we fast forward about 400 years, it became much more advanced, and it started being connected to a supercomputer. Supercomputer could analyze things much faster than the human mind. Supercomputer was able to calculate how many stars it can see, based on certain estimates. Long story short, there was a research by NASA in 1997, and then a further research by the Australian National University in 2003. Both estimates came up with numbers not too far from our own. 10 to the 21st power and 10 to the 19th power. One of them is coming closer than the other. Needless to say, regardless of which number it is, it's a whole lot more than 6,000, and the secular world that's using their logic is finally coming closer to a number we didn't even have a calculate to calculate it with. We didn't have such numbers, not back then, not today. So to say that such a number would have been a man-made creation is obviously foolish. And the only one that could have known it is the one that put it there. We couldn't see it. We didn't have the telescope. We didn't have anything. This was written 3,300 years ago, or 2,000 years ago in the Gemara. Well before Galileo Galilei ever existed, well before we came to the modern world and had telescopes that were able to count, well before anything. Shows you that the Torah is not only divine, but it's something that is beyond our understanding, and we're only finally starting to catch up today. The next part is when this is specifically for people, Baruch Hashem not here, but anyone that has trouble believing in creation. People have a tough time, religious and non-religious, have a tough time believing that evolution is wrong. They have a tough time. They believe that there's a certain element of evolution, which there is. There's a certain amount of evolution that does happen, but it's nowhere near the science that's taught in public schools. If you remember, if anyone went to these schools, I did. I remember in science class, they had a picture of a monkey, and someone who looks less like a monkey, and less like a monkey, and less like a monkey, and eventually becomes a human being. You guys remember that picture? Mm-hmm. Okay, you don't remember that picture. And that's what they say is what happened. They said that everything came from a cell, and the cell became something else, like a fish or something, and it became a lizard. Lizard somehow became a monkey, and the monkey eventually became me that's giving you the lecture today. Okay. I say it didn't come from a monkey. We may look alike, but it didn't come from a monkey. How do we know that this is the biggest and most foolish thing to even think, forget about, say? This is purely logical, and it's very, very simple to understand. Now let's just say you have the 5 people. You have the monkey, it's number 1, then there's stage 2, 3, 4, we're stage 5. I'm 5, monkey's 1. Okay, question number 1. Why is the monkey still here? Simple question. If the monkey evolved to me, why is he still here? That's question number 1. Fact number 1. In order for anything to evolve, this is a little deep, so just try to pay attention. In order for anything to evolve from stage 1 to stage 2, it has to be strong enough and self-sustaining enough to survive without evolving. Meaning that in order for stage number 1 to become stage number 2, it has to be strong enough to stay stage number 1 without evolving. Meaning that the evolution is not out of necessity, but out of desire to improve, not to survive. Because if it was about to survive, then it would never survive long enough, especially according to evolution where they say it's millions and millions of years, it wouldn't survive long enough to be number 2. So stage number 1 has to be self-sustainable in order to become stage number 2. Got that so far? So since stage number 1 has to be self-sustainable and strong enough to survive, to be number 2, that also means that stage number 2 has to be strong enough to stay by itself without evolving to become stage number 3. Right? This means that at all times, assuming there are 5 stages, at least 3 have to exist at all times. It could never be only 2. Stage number 1 has to be strong enough to be stage number 2. Now, let's say we started with 100 stage 1, 100 monkeys. 90 of them evolved to become stage number 2. That's still left 10. Out of the 90, let's say 80 of them become stage number 3. That's still left 10. So by the time stage number 3 is evolving into stage number 4, maybe the other 10 either the number 1 became number 2, or maybe they just died. But it can never be that number 3 is around and number 1 isn't. So what is the point of this? If we came from monkeys, and the monkey's number 1, and then there's 3 before us, where are the other ones? How come there's no other human that looks like me and the monkey? The guy in the middle. There was a drawing of 5. We have number 1. We have number 5. Where's 2, 3, and 4? At the minimum, where's number 4? Let's say we skipped over 2 and 3. Let's say the diagram is wrong. Let's say there wasn't 5. Let's say there was 3. There was monkey. There was half a monkey, half a human. And then there was me. I promise you I don't have a tail. Where's number 2? That's the easiest way to show that the monkey theory can never be.
Is the caveman number 2 or whatever?
Caveman, yeah. Caveman is probably somewhere around number 4.
Oh, number 4? Okay.
Somewhere around number 4. He's right before us. Number 2 is still a monkey. Still a monkey, maybe without a tail. Some other nonsense they created just based out of their imagination. But nonetheless, again, many people believe this. So the big question is, there are a lot of scientists that believe this. These scientists, some of them are Jewish. Some of them are not Jewish. But they're all smart. They're not fools. How can you explain such a big mistake made by such smart people? First of all, we all need to know that the biggest mistakes in history were made by the smartest people in history. Why? Because people that are stupid don't ever get a chance to make a big mistake, because no one gives them the job. People that are not smart get the basic jobs. People that are really, really smart get the big jobs. At least that's what we hope, with the exception of our presidents. But aside from that, we have big jobs and small jobs. That's number 4. Yeah.
No, it's down around.
So now, how could such smart people, scientific people, not figure out what we just figured out in the last hour? 2 things. 1 is money, 2 is obligation. First one is easier to explain than the other. Money. Scientists live based on contributions and grants and money that's being paid for them for their sustenance. They get hundreds of millions of dollars to do work that's generally theoretical. Theoretical by definition means it's an idea, it's a possibility, it's a guess. It does not mean fact. That's what some people that don't know science think, especially young people. That believe in that stuff. They say, no, this science said that the Big Bang Theory happened. But you just said Big Bang Theory. Theory means it's just theoretical. And it's what a lot of people don't understand with the word theory. So they get a lot of money from governments and different institutions for the purpose of doing their work. So that means that if they admit the truth, if the guy that's researching evolution, the guy that's researching stage 2, 3, and 4, 5, so if the guy that's drew that drawing, he's not alive anymore, but let's say he's still alive, he's figuring out where stage 2, 3, 4, and 4 are. He saw this Shiur online, and he's like, you know what? He's got a point. I know what monkey is. I know where he is. I got stage 1 and 5. Where's 2 and 3 and 4? Now, if he admits that I'm right, and he tells all of the institutions and universities that this guy that's giving us Shiur Torah just proved me wrong, maybe the few $100 million will come to this Shiur, not to him. But the reality of it is that it's a big risk for him, because he will lose his job. That means that his science, his work, his life's work, becomes meaningless. If it's proven wrong, then it's meaningless. So what do? They say, listen, we're not so sure, it's a theory. But we're going to spend the rest of our lives and the rest of your money trying to prove our theory right. So first reason is money, which is unfortunately a very big driven factor that runs our world. The second reason is obligation. Why is obligation a problem? Because if believing that we didn't come from evolution, it becomes easy, and we realize we didn't come from monkeys. Where did we come from? We realized earlier today, we came from God. After seeing just a small, tiny amount of proofs, which we'll go over many more in the coming shiurs, we notice that this God wrote a Torah. How do we know he wrote Torah? Because there's too much information here for it to come from a human being. There's too much insider information, is how we call it in securities business. Stuff that no one else has. Too much goods. It's too divine. How could you know the number of stars? How could you know the secrets of water? How could you know that there's water when we can't even see the water? At that time we got the facts about the water. Some people still thought that the world was flat. They didn't even know that most of the world was 73% water. Forget about thinking that there's water above the earth. So obviously there's enough information just in the first few days of creation to show us that this book came from something above us. Now, if it came from the Creator, and the Creator gave us this book, at the very least, we should learn what it says. Why? Because Torah in Hebrew also means instructions. Torah. These are instructions. I like to call the Torah a love letter. It's a love letter from HaShem. Why is it a love letter? Because He's telling you how to have the best possible life, here and there. you follow what he says, you're not only going to have a lot of pleasure in learning all of this stuff, but you learn things like they're going to help your marriage, you learn things that are going to help your business, you learn things that are going to help you be happy. As a matter of fact, one of the things we learn from the sages is that the Torah, since happiness is a spiritual feeling, and the Torah is spiritual, the only way for us to achieve the spiritual state of happiness is by feeding it something spiritual. Meaning you can feed yourself as many cars as you want, as much money as you want, as many millions as you want. And I'm not telling you like I came from a poor place. I made many millions in my life. So when somebody tells you money is the root of all evil, and never had money, it's a little difficult to. I came from that. I had a lot of money, and I made a lot of money. And I'm telling you, whoever came up with that statement is a genius. But the reality of it is that it doesn't make anyone any happier. At all. Not even 1% happy. Why? Because happiness is a spiritual feeling. The Torah is something spiritual. Even though you see this book as something physical, the lessons you learn from it are spiritual. The impact it has is spiritual. Meaning that the only way that you can become happy is through the Torah. So to sum it up and finalize the shiur today, when I thought about today, in the shiur today, I thought about that client Henry. Henry brought an investment to me and he told me, I want you to look into this investment. And I thought to myself, after I noticed that this is a Ponzi scheme, it's a scam, and they're going to take his money and run with it. But I knew that he believes their story. He even likes the two guys that are pitching it. The two guys that are really nice guys. Had a nice bio. Even nicer than the one that Warren read earlier today. One worked for the US Open. The other guy worked for, I think, Disney. And he liked the guys. And they came over his house. And they had dinner. And it was a big bag of lies. One lie, above another lie, and above another lie. And it was such a small bit of truth. And that's the secret of all big lies. All big lies have a little bit of truth in them. The world we live in today and the beliefs we have today is one big Ponzi scheme. The Ponzi scheme that we live in is that we can do whatever we want. The Ponzi scheme we live in is that it's okay if we don't follow the Torah. I'll figure it out when I get up there. I'll talk to God. He's a nice one. They say he's a Rahman. He say he's merciful. So forgive me. What's the big deal that I don't keep Shabbat? What's the big deal if I do whatever I want? What if it's the big deal if I never learn more than the shiur today? What's the big deal? That's our logic. That's the Satan. That's the evil inclination. The Ponzi scheme we live in today is leading us to believe that we can do whatever we want. We have no obligations. And I was thinking about Henry and I said, how do you start a conversation to tell someone the truth when all he's ever heard was lies? And I hope that today we've identified a small part of the truth, because most of what we have in this world is lies. The goal is to find a diamond in the rough. It's called the Torah. Just take that truth, hold on to it, and Be'ezrat Hashem, get closer to Hashem and get to our purpose. Unless you guys have any questions, Be'ezrat Hashem will have even more people next week.
Can you even write down the email address that's not part of the